So I now invite my colleague Bianca Brichoux, also professor in our Providence School, to present our speaker for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us, and a special thank you to Chantal for being here in this conversation. We really feel honored to have you as part of our Being the Leader series, and we've been reflecting a lot on how your work is really embodying so many principles of what we teach in our School of Transformative Leadership and Spirituality. So it's a great opportunity to have you here. We really thank you. So I will present now Dr. Chantal Beauvais, and she, as many of you know, she is the first lay female rector of St. Paul University, and she's been holding this position since 2009. Under her direction and inspired by her drive for change, the university expanded its academic offering, improved the quality of the student experience, strengthened its international presence, and enhanced its internal administration. Dr. Beauvais is a transformative leader with great capacity for innovative change, and she contributed to the creation of many programs and projects at St. Paul University, such as the creation of our own school, the Providence School of Transformative Leadership and Spirituality, the School of Social Innovation, the Indigenous Center, the Newcomer Navigator Program, and many other programs that the university does in collaboration with communities. Besides her position as a rector, she's actively involved in public sector associations and committees in the areas of research ethics, social integration, and accessibility of higher education. She's an advocate for inclusion, compassion, and social justice. Her term was renewed 3 times, the last one just this year, which just shows how difficult it is to find someone of her caliber. She created a new strategic plan lasting to 2025 with the mission to integrate learning and research with social engagement and the vision of transformative leadership for the well-being of the planet, healing of human relationships, and respectful dialogue with Canada's First Peoples. Dr. Beauvais is also a visionary, inspiring speaker who touches the heart, a creative and bold spiritual leader with deep wisdom, an infectious sense of humor, and an energizing presence. So I feel delighted to be in a conversation with you, Chantal, today. I will start with a question about your own experience as the leader of the university. So if you can tell us a little bit about your academic life and also your life as a leader of the university, what is it that gives you, I would say, meaning and hope in your work?
Thank you, Bianca. My life as an academic is atypical. So I started at university in 2001, and I was hired as a professor of philosophy / administrator. And it seems that this followed me for the rest of my path here at St. Paul University. I was always involved in management somehow. So it's been a interesting journey, and in some ways, I think it placed me in a position where I really needed to go in the trenches and understand what the people's experiences were on the ground. Because I never had that typical experience of being an academic, I needed to meet with people, listen to their journey and also their aspirations as academics, and also staff members as well. So my life in general has been animated by answering a call. And so it's the same for arriving here at St. Paul University. I wasn't supposed to be here. I was actually thinking about the public service, and I didn't think I would be in an academic world because I was so atypical. So, and I got a phone call and I said yes, and I ended up here. And I think I felt like a fish in a bowl of water. I was really, really happy when I landed here. I don't know if I'm transformative leader. I think what I would say is my role probably has been to make the community aware of its own transformative being. So it's not so much me as the community. We all have this dimension in ourselves of transformative journey. We don't have a choice. We are born as little babies, and then we grow up as adults, and as adults we have to undergo many transformations, like the butterfly. So I see my role as making room for this to happen, creating a sense of awareness in people as individuals, but also as a community, that transformation is life-giving and should be embraced. That's all I had to say for now.
Thank you, Chantal. So in answering the call, I think that you mean both metaphorically and literally.
Yes.
In terms of
exactly.
So I appreciate when you say that that you, in a way, make the community aware of its transformative capacities, and this
Exactly.
leads me to the second question, which is about that awareness. And I will just link that awareness to this aspect of spirituality and its role in social change. And how do you envision the role of spirituality in education, first of all, and then in social change?
Wow, great question. For me, for example, if you talk about this particular organization, university, we have to look at its own call. What is a university called to do? And I like this definition by Wendell Berry. I know some of you are familiar with his work, but I found this definition in one of these books. He says, universities, at least the public supported ones, are mandated to make or to help to make human beings in the fullest sense of the words, not just trained workers or knowledgeable citizens, but responsible heirs and members of human culture. I mean, there is so much in that definition. And so it's exactly why spirituality is integral part of academic life, because we learn to be a human being, and a human being longs for meaning, and longs to be connected with others, with the whole of the universe. And so that longing needs to be explored, needs to be lived, needs to be experienced, because I think otherwise that transformative capacity cannot flourish as it should. Spirituality is a way to, I think, if I were to define our organization as a system or life as a system, I think spirituality is a way to step out of this system a little bit, to feel what's out there, to have an overview of the parts and the whole. So I think spirituality, whatever it may be, it could be a secular spirituality, it could be a faith-based spirituality. I think it's that capacity to step out and feel the whole and feel where all of this is going. So because everything is on a journey, the universe is on a journey, all the people, the trees, the creation is on a journey. So how can we get a feel of that journey, and hence trying to facilitate that by our own being, by our own choices, by our actions. So I think this is why spirituality is intricately linked with education and also social change, because as a community, as a collection of human beings, we also need to make collective decisions and collective choices. So as a collective, it's important that we are able to connect with the whole and connect with the path of the universe. It sounds a bit esoteric, but what I mean there is, because we are in systems, we are often boxed in, and we cannot necessarily feel where the system is going. We are feeling sometimes the pressures of the system. We are feeling sometimes the constraints of the system, but sometimes it is difficult to feel freedom and the leap. How can we leap beyond the system? So I think spirituality is that capacity to leap, and we all have it. In the Christian world, spirituality is oriented towards conversion. Conversion in Greek is metanoia, which means changing your knowledge. So I see this as also very connected with education. So metanoia, conversion, is the same as embracing change and letting go of things that hinder your embracing change, old patterns, old ideas, old values, a way to let go of those values who are no longer giving you life, and embracing new values, embracing a new worldview. So all of this is not possible without spirituality.
May I ask a question about this? Because I'm wondering, why do you think, Chantal, that the world of spirituality and the world of academia have been such separate worlds, right? So there are not many universities where we can talk about spirituality as being one of the fundaments of the learning process. So do you see a reason why these worlds have been strictly separated?
I think it's how the system sort of froze itself. En anglais, en français, on dit le système est figé. So it's kind of frozen, like your screen. Sometimes the Zoom screen is frozen. So because universities have become a place where the brain is nourished, it's the intellectual capacity that is nourished about teaching and learning, forming of concepts, theories, and that's what our students are subjected to when they come to the university. However, our students are not just brains. Our students are human beings, and they have emotions, and they have a longing for connection. And that also needs to be nourished somehow. So it depends on your view.
I think there was a momentary technical difficulty, but hopefully she will reappear.
I'm wondering if the connection, when Chantal was speaking about connections, we just lost her.
Maybe Bianca, you want to say a few words about what you're hearing from Chantal?
Sure. So as we wait for Chantal, it's I just want to refer back to what she was saying in this idea of separation between spirituality and academia, and she was using an interesting word of the system being frozen. and the fact that many or the universities see themselves as systems that nurture mostly the brain. And she's talking about these other really important human needs, which is the need for connection, the need for meaning, and these longings that that are less nurtured in the academic world. And we need to create the spaces for making that possible, you know, for the nurturing of other aspects of being human and not just there you are back. I'm so happy you're back, Chantal. We lost you for a moment. If you can unmute yourself. I was just summarizing what you said.
Thanks. We were talking about frozen screens and frozen system, and here we are. So I think that there's a lot of pressure being put on academics and on students because it is about this competition to be the first, to have the highest marks, to have you know, the most research money, and it fosters a climate of individuality. And also it creates enormous stress on people because if you want to, I mean, the bar is so high that you can't succeed if you frame education in that way, because life goes on. You may have children, you may have other commitments, and it's impossible to dedicate your whole life solely to that, to knowledge and research and teaching. So other dimensions of our beings need to live, need to be nourished, and you were just mentioning that. And I think that our view of education has to embrace that. And that doesn't mean that you're losing on the intellectual side. On the contrary, it deepens your intellectual capacity.
Thank you, Chantal. So you talk about transformation as being one aspect of, it's almost like a life process of being in transformation, as being a natural aspect of life in general. And I'm asking, my next question is concerned with this aspect of courage, because the way you see it, it seems like a flow, like an easy process, but many people don't see it like this flow of transformation and like an easy process, because we tend to want to hold on to the things that that we have and the systems and the structures that we have in place. So my next question is related to moral courage and the courage that is necessary to enact transformation. And if we think of this aspect of moral courage and transformative leadership as the capacity to act out of love for the world and engage in the struggle for social justice and for inclusion and for the well-being of all, what would you say gave you the courage to participate in this transformation and to reach this understanding of transformation as a natural process? And how were you able to convince others to embrace transformation the way you do?
Whoa, that's a big question.
It's a multiple question.
Whoa. I guess it's I think I might just share my screen a little bit to sort of illustrate some of these things. Can you see my screen? Okay, so you can talk about different types of change, and often when we understand change, we understand it as going from A to B, or going from word perfect to word. That requires different skills and different actions. But when we talk about transformative change, we talk about human beings and organizations on a growth pattern, and then sort of like stabilizing, and then disintegrating if you don't adapt to the context. So there is always a possibility for a re-emergence. If you don't do anything, then it's the death, and our mindset shifts. So what you need is a wake-up call, And I think that's a role of leaders in the organization. And that relates back to my comment about creating an awareness. So creating this awareness that the path that we are on is a path of re-emergence. And so it looks like a very inviting path. However, it doesn't go very well always with our colleagues. Sometimes they are afraid. And there's another image here that I often use. It's by Ronald Heifetz. So if you have a technical problem, you just fix it. It doesn't require a whole lot of skills or just the expertise. But if you look at transformative change, that means you are in a zone of disequilibrium, because you're leaving something you know to embrace something you don't know. And what that does is that it creates a lot of turbulence in here. And the role of the leader, or what people expect of a leader or people in leadership, is that we remove that experience, that we don't let people experience this, that we have solutions for this, and then we have clarity, we have certainty that we can exercise on our authority and everything will be fine. Well, that's the kind of context where the old ways are not functioning, and the normal dispositions of authority will not work in that context. And what will work is that the people figure it out, because it is an adaptive challenge or a transformative challenge. The role of leadership in that particular case is to maintain a holding environment where the people experiencing the problem they can learn together how to move forward from that particular place. So the role of the leadership is to create a holding environment for people to figure it out collectively. And it's not to take the anxiety away from the experience. If you take the anxiety away, that means we'll just go into what Heifetz calls the work avoidance. We don't want to work, we're just expecting the leadership to do that. So keeping people in a productive zone of disequilibrium, it's not easy. This is what we call, this is what we need courage to keep people in that zone. And it can become very dangerous for leadership to be in that zone, because people are expecting you to be the person who will have all the answers and who will give all the solutions. And the type of change that we're living you cannot have that type of leadership. So you're disappointing people, and people are mad about that and are frustrated. So it requires courage to stand in that space. But what gives me hope is that this is a transformative journey. I know that we're on a path to growth. I know that what will happen will be beautiful and nourishing. So Warren Bennis, he gives a definition of leadership as learning how to dance to music yet unheard. So I think the role of leadership is to dance and to announce that music through the dancing. So it sounds esoteric, and I like to dance, by the way, so that's probably why that metaphor rings with me. But you embody the change that you are visioning. And so it requires spirituality, freedom, hope, and all these qualities. And it gives me hope because the objective is so noble. I mean, if you look at the objective of education to assist people to become human beings, I mean, this is a, I don't see anything else, more precious than that. So that gives me hope, because I see it every day. I see beautiful human beings. I see people flourish, and so it is possible.
Thank you, Chantal. I find it very interesting how you define leadership as this capacity to create a container for others to go through the required transformations. And if I go back to this aspect of courage, you see courage as the capacity to be with discomfort, and also to move towards that dance that is yet unheard or just sensed to a certain degree, and the need for spirituality and hope, and I would say taking our longings and our imagination seriously. So
I should be interviewing you.
I was just rephrasing what you said in my own understanding, just because I thought that what you said was so important, and I wanted to make it sink a little bit deeper. So in terms of
you said it more beautifully. Thank you.
thank you, Chantal. I will. I want to ask you a few more questions about your values. So if you think that you brought some new values as your, I mentioned that you're first lay female rector of the university, and have you seen a big change of the university since you've been rector? If you can name some of the really big changes that you've seen the university going through.
I don't know if the fact that I'm a woman played a role. I think the fact that I was a woman and the first lay leader created a lot of expectations. So there was huge pressure, and some people let me know that I better not mess around, because people had their eyes on me. So that created a huge challenge, and I felt I had a responsibility not to disappoint people. That was a very for the first year I felt so I felt a burden of showing up in a way that people were expecting me to. And then I decided to just be myself. So because I needed to be free, I needed to feel light, and I needed to dance, and just not dancing alone, but dancing with people. So I decided to let go of that gravitas that we expect out of rectors of universities, and I decided to embody something else, something more alive, something more free. And I don't know, there were a lot of changes in the university, but I think they happened because other people started to dance as well. So we have changes in infrastructure, we have changes in the way we do things, we have creative projects. Nothing would have happened if the collective didn't feel that this was possible. So my role is just that, is to, I sometimes say that leadership is cheerleading. It's a way of motivating people, but from a basis where you deeply believe in them. You believe in people individually, but you believe in a collective, and that gives people wings, and that's what I think is at the source of the changes that were brought in at the university. And again, it's not. It sounds like how do you call that? a tale for children, you know, that we come, and then there's pink flowers and there's little birds and all of that. It sounds like that fairy tale. That's what I was looking at. But it's not a fairy tale. So there are moments where there is disappointment, discouraging comments, people are in the dark, people are afraid. So yeah, dancing is not always the way to show up in these moments. So sometimes you need to be compassionate, and you need to hear people, and you just need to be present. So dancing and presence, I think, are two features of leadership. One story, once I had a professor come to my office, a young professor, and she said, Chantal, what are you waiting for? That was when I was feeling the burden and feeling the responsibility to gather to make sure everybody was involved in change. And there was a particular group who wasn't so interested in change. And I was waiting for them to step aboard the train. And that young professor told me, you know what, we're all there. Some people don't want to be on the train, that's okay. They'll jump later. We're ready to go with you, Chantal, so let's go. So I thought that was that was a very touching moment, that this came from a professor, and a young professor at that okay, we're eager for change. You created this appetite for change. Now let's go, chop chop, we're ready to go. And that's, I like the metaphor of the train. And also another metaphor with the train is that if you are in the first we call that a wagon, a coach of the train, you're the first one to see the train come out of the tunnel. But the rest of the wagons, they're still there in the tunnel. And so the people are saying, hey, it's dark in here. I don't see anything. What is she doing? And I want to go back to where I was. And but eventually they also get to see the sun. But there is that delay where the sun is not seen by everyone. And so some people will jump on board, and they will experience that, and they may be tempted to go back, because they say, well, she told us that this was going to be an interesting journey, and look at us, we're all afraid, and there's no light, and we're anxious. So they want to go back to where they were. Change is happening because also the people who have seen the sun can go back and tell the others, we've seen the sun. So it's not just an individual responsibility, it's also a collective responsibility to say change is possible and change is good. We are more alive because of that change. And so these are very important actions to be taken by individuals in the system. And this is what I call collective leadership. And to take another metaphor, because I'm a philosopher, I always like the story of the cave by Plato. And people are tied, and they're looking at the wall of the cave, and all they see are little blurs on the wall. That's all they've ever seen. That's what they live in. That's their reality. And Plato says, well, what if you have somebody from the outside who comes in and unchain people so that they can see the sun? What's going to happen? Well, the people are not going to be happy, because it's going to take a while before their eyes get adapted to the sun. And the people may not want to leave the cave. They're comfortable there. It's warm, it's fuzzy. And so I'm used to that, so I want to stay there. But once they've seen the sun, they see the colors of the world. They see the source of meaning. Then they will I think they are stepping into a deeper layer of humanity. And so I think leaders are like philosophers. I think they call people to unchain themselves and step into the light.
Thank you, Chantal. I'm really touched by by this metaphor, and how you connect education to leadership as this stepping into the light and accessing a deeper form of knowing. So one last question before we go to questions from the participants is, what do you see as a unique trait of St. Paul University? You know, we talk about the vision of education as the development of a human, open, spiritual, and engaged person. And if you think about our university in relationship to other universities, is there something that you would say it's very specific to St. Paul, or do you think that St. Paul shares this concern with spirituality with many other universities? What is your, how do you see this?
Well, because we are a university, I think we share many traits with other universities. At the same time, I like to think that we actually do what we claim we do. So we claim that we are a transformative university, that we have these values of being open, spiritual, engaged. What's the other one? Spiritual, open, engaged.
Human.
That we are also human, believe it or not. So that should transpire in everything we do. And I think that this is always something that we can do better, because again, the system is unfrozen in certain areas, but is frozen in other areas. We may believe, or we may think it's a good idea to embody these values, but how does that translate into the way we teach? How does that translate in the content that we teach? How does that translate into the way we relate to one another? So we're always on the learning path here, because it takes time to embody those changes. It doesn't happen overnight. So the other thing is, our university, I would like to believe that our university is there for the community. We often say that universities are there for the community, they disseminate knowledge and all of that. I'm not so sure it's true. I think universities disseminate knowledge mostly to other universities, to other academics, and it doesn't always land in the community, real communities. So I think that I had a dream where if we had a donation of $100 million, first of all, we would build a glass, a curved glass in front of the university, in front of the two buildings of the university. And then these glass would take different colors depending on what's happening at the university. So let's say 1 week the glass is orange, and the orange lights shines everywhere, and the community is invited to come in. We know that when it's Orange Week, it's Innovation Week. So everything that goes on in university is innovation. So professors are sharing their research, students are doing poster sessions, community is invited in to participate in finding solutions to various social problems. The next week it'd be green light. So environment, the same thing. We talk about environment, people who have concerns about the environment come in, and it's the collective. We build a space for the collective to exercise its leadership. So this is what I think is there at St. Paul University. It's, is that a word, seminal? I think it's seminal. I think we're in a liminal space with that, but I think this is something that's unique to St. Paul's. And I think also because everything is connected, spirituality, human beings, longing for meaning, and longing for connection with others.
Thank you, Chantal. I really hope that you will get the 100 million donation. It sounds like a wonderful idea to build that. So I want to thank you very much for these amazing answers. And now we will invite questions. I see that we have a few questions in the chat. And you're also welcome to ask the question yourselves if you want to put up your hand and unmute yourselves.
All right, so we have 2 questions already in the chat, and we also have some hands up. So how about if I start with one question in the chat and then I'll go right away to Sandra? Is that okay? So my question in the chat actually is from Emmanuel. And Emmanuel asks, how do we relate spirituality to social justice?
I think there's many ways to answer that question. Some people would say that spirituality is embedded in social justice. Like when you engage into social justice work, necessarily you will step in spirituality. Others will say, well, not necessarily. Social justice is something that we all do, and spirituality will add flavor to it or will add depth to it. And I don't think there is any magic answers there. I'm with the view that I prefer the first view, that whenever you're engaged in social justice work, you're necessarily engaged in a spiritual journey, but you may not be aware of it. But it is a spiritual journey. When we talk about social justice, what are we talking about? We're talking about inclusivity. We're talking about making sure that everybody has a chance to deepen their humanity. We're talking about everybody deserves a chance to be fully alive. So these concepts and these experiences are spiritual experiences. When I feel alive, I feel it in my body, I feel it in my head, I feel it in my heart. So this is something that is a holistic experience. So I think when you engage in social justice projects, you put yourself in the path of experiencing those moments. And when your spirituality is obvious to you, well, it makes that experience, I think, perhaps more readily available. But when your spirituality is not, when you're not quite aware yet of the spirituality that you are embodying, it may take a little bit more time to connect the dots. This is my 2 cents.
Right, thank you for that, Chantal. We'll now invite Sandra Hull to ask her question. Sandra.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Hi, first of all, thank you so much for today's workshop. I'm a 2nd year PhD student at the University of Ottawa in rehabilitation sciences, and I'm also an occupational therapist. And the reason I attended today is just that I'm really interested in looking at concepts in health that are less so, I guess, talked about in the healthcare system, like spirituality, coping with illness, and finding meaning, and living a good life, even if we do have experiences of illness or mental health issues. And so I just, first of all, want to say thank you so much in that it's nice to be able to connect with other universities. And also, I was just wondering, in terms of a question, can you suggest, I guess, ways of incorporating these topics of spirituality in academics for PhD students? Like, for example, I've developed an art-based workshop for PhD students to attend. And so we kind of like pick a theme and then we explore it through art. We meet once a month. And so I'm wondering if there's like certain themes or resources that we could explore together to kind of be more aware of spirituality in academics, and that type of thing?
Thank you for the question. I think you already found a beautiful answer by engaging together in art work. I think art is definitely a way to experience ourselves from a different perspective, from the perspective of creativity and emerging life. Now let me think. I don't know readily, what I could suggest, but I'm thinking about rituals. There are some rituals because there are some passages, in our lives, and PhD students experience those a lot. And it seems to me that we're not making room for meaningful rituals in our universities or even in hospitals. So, you're healed. Okay, bye-bye, out the door, and now we have the next patient. And it's the same with students. I mean, you graduated, out the door, now we're going to welcome a new cohort. So the end of ceremonies, I find so, there's a protocol around that's perhaps needed, but at the same time, it's I feel sometimes that it's an empty structure. It lacks life, and it's paradoxical because we say that educational institutions give life, and then we celebrate in a very boring way with no life at all. Everybody wearing their costumes and their regalia, and so I think we need to invent new rituals so that we can feel alive, we can feel that sense of achievement, and not just individually but collectively. So that's why rituals are important, because they bring people together. So I think you can create your own rituals. When somebody is finished writing their thesis, you gather and you celebrate in a way that's going to imprint that moment of success in your body and in your affect.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Sandra. We're going to ask Danielle to ask her question.
Sound is not so good.
No, it's
better. Is this a little bit better?
Much better.
Okay. Alors, merci Lorraine. Thank you very much, Chantal, for sharing your wisdom this afternoon. I appreciate it, and I was really happy to be able to make some room in my schedule with you today.
We're not getting it again, Danielle. Maybe get closer to your microphone.
Yeah, I think so.
No.
Danielle, maybe if you could send your...
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. So my question is, I have the privilege of working with the younger generation, and I'm wondering, in your view, what is missing? What would be the most important elements or conditions in preparing the younger generation to pursue?
Yeah. We're not. Danielle, perhaps you could put your question in the chat. Yeah, your sound is not coming out. It's too bad. Yeah, we'll have to. Danielle, we'll ask you to. Yeah, that's great. Put it in the chat.
Sounds like a robot from outer space. Somebody out of the system who's telling us what they're seeing.
Yeah. Now, and unfortunately, we're out of time.
Oh no.
Oh yes, I wish we could. I think that the conversation is so stimulating and inspiring. I think we could metaphorically put up a tent, right, and stay here for quite a while. I will say is that we're going to copy these questions that you are so generously putting in the chat, because you raise so many important issues and questions that are stimulating for us, that obviously they are for you. And hopefully we'll find another place, right, to be able to address some of this in a continuing conversation. So that's a bit of my segue into, and there is life after this particular one. So we do plan actually to continue this lunch hour series in the new year. So that's an important piece of information. So, and we now have your emails, and you will be getting that information, that link from us. So those will be resumed. The other thing that I did want to mention is that December 15th, which is a Wednesday, again, a lunch hour, we are going to have a book launch that I have a sense many of you might be interested in. It actually is a book that has just been recently published by Bianca Brichoux, and it's called The Revolutionary Art of Love, From Romantic Love to Global Compassion. And so Bianca will be interviewed by Gabrielle about this book. And so again, that link is going to be sent to you. And I also want to mention that we are beginning a leadership and well-being series, a program, actually a 6-week program or a 7-week program, I believe now, that will be beginning also in January. And again, you will be getting that information. And my last thing is for those of you who are interested, admissions are now open for our September 2022 programs. And so why would I not take this opportunity, right, to mention that? So yes, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Now, I think that is it. I'm actually going to defer. Gabrielle, was I going to give more information as we end?
No, that's all, just to thank everybody. And,
All right.
there will be, the recording will be sent before the end of the day, so you'll be able to check out all this information as well in the email.
Wonderful. So first of all, thank you, Chantal, for your generous sharing today.
Thank you.
And inspiring. I do apologize that we did not get to all the questions, but know that you certainly have touched us and we've connected with what you have shared. So thank you for that. Very much appreciated. And thank you to Bianca also for your interviewing and also for your working with Chantal to make this a good, rich learning for us all. And thank you to each and every one of you for being here today. We very much appreciate your presence, and we look forward to the next time that we can be in one of these events. So have a great rest of the day. It is now coming to mid-November, and so I'm going to also wish you, right, a good entry into the winter season that is now upon us. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Love you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.